Victor has agreed to take some questions and answers, so I'm going to just step out of the way and let him recognize you. We would like for everyone to be able to hear your question clearly, so there are microphones on either aisle. So if you'll just hold up your hand when you have a question, we'll try to get to you. And I always at this point, Bill, say, you know, questions are better than speeches. So try to think of a question and keep it as brief as possible. That way we can get to as many as possible. Raise your hand if you've got a question.
Yes.
You made a statement in there that you're not allowed to use the L word.
Yes.
I'll start again. You made a statement that you're not allowed to use the L word. How do you refute what he's been saying without actually calling him a liar?
Well, we don't want to say, remember Bush lied, thousands died. Everybody else was quite promiscuous in that use of that word. I think you have to come up with the Obama vocabulary of euphemism. Misspoke, was hesitant, confused. Something like that will work much better. This opens a larger question. How do you criticize Obama? I don't think it works to say that he's a communist. He's not, and communism is associated with Stalin, and just the way Bush, Hitler didn't work. A European socialist seems to me a very empirical and fair charge, and I think he would welcome that. So I think you have to be, and then the second thing is that when you criticize Obama, you have, because the first thing you're going to encounter is, well, Bush spent $500 billion in that last budget. Then you have to say, well, either he was wrong to do so and we criticized him, and the answer for reckless spending is not to triple reckless spending. Or you can say that there were mitigating circumstances. That seems to be a little bit weaker, but you can try it. I've done both. It's a hard thing to do, to criticize Barack Obama, because there's so many subtexts that we don't dare speak about. There's a racial thing, there's he's a liberal, he's young, he's attractive, he's charismatic, and anytime David Frum just wrote an article, if any of you saw it yesterday, and it said, it was just savage to Rush Limbaugh. It said, here we have a spokesman who's fat and drug addicted, and he's been divorced, and he lives in a mansion, he smokes cigars, and the only vice that Barack Obama has, he occasionally might take a cigarette, but he's a good father, he's married, he's got wonderful kids, he's young, he's athletic. And this man was, I know him very well, he's a star. He used to be a staunch conservative. So it's, I think there's sort of a lot of, I want to get to the next question, but there's sort of a little bit of deja vu, not to a Bush perhaps, but a little bit of sense that we've been here before, we've seen what politicians do, and I've just collated today all of the people who told me in the campaign that we had to vote for Obama. People like Larry Kramer, Jim Kramer on the financial advisor, David Brooks. I had a conversation with Christopher Buckley where he swore that Obama was so much better than anybody could possibly believe. And Martin Ferritz wrote something the other day, and they've all said, gosh, nobody told me that he wanted to redistribute income and change the foreign policy of the United States to make it in line with the UN and Europe. So we're in a process of filtering out. If the economy gets back, you may be okay. Another question. Back there.
Hi. When Obama was campaigning for president, Joe Biden came out and said that in terms of international relations, there would be great testing of the new presidency very soon after the election. And I think we've seen it through Dr. Khan's release, the Iranian nuclear game, European missile shield confrontations, Afghanistan campaign tensions rising, North Korea missile issues going on, and most recently, Secretary of State Clinton's message that a Palestinian nation is inevitable and thus alienating one of our greatest allies in the region. How do you feel that this early testing has come, and do you think this is the initial test that Joe Biden was referring to?
Yes, I do. I mean, that's a lot better. That wasn't one of the only things Joe Biden said that I was persuaded by. I mean, I didn't believe that Franklin Roosevelt was president and addressed the nation assassination on TV in 1929, which he assured us was true. That happens to every president. Remember JFK with the summit of Cuban Missile Crisis in 61. It happens to every president. The more so they're younger and inexperienced. Obama, remember, is a wordsmith. He's never run a business. He's never been an executive. He's always been able to talk himself. He was a Harvard Review editor, never published an article. So he's got an amazing rhetorical ammunition, and that's valuable in diplomacy. But he doesn't have a realistic, tragic view of the world. So in his way of thinking, all of these problems that we have in the world happened mostly in the last 8 years, and they were misunderstandings. They don't represent antithetical agendas. He does not believe that the former Soviet Union misses and very much its former empire, and it thinks that maybe it could restore what communism had under a right-wing authoritarian, oil-fed new empire. It doesn't believe that Iran would like to be the central Muslim power in the Middle East and dictate to its lesser Arab neighbors about, as I said, everything from oil to the stance toward Israel. It doesn't believe that North Korea really, as a failed state, wants to reach parity by threatening Japan or threatening. And the danger of all this is that be careful what you wish for. The Europeans lectured us ad nauseum about unilateralism, even though Bush's second term was about as multilateral as you could get. But nevertheless, they have Obama now. And the Czechs, what are the Czechs and the Poles doing today? This is a man who took Churchill's bust and sent it back to England, that Tony Blair gave him. I guess he sent it back and had a note and said, give me one of Clement Attlee or Stanley Baldwin or Neville Chamberlain. But the point I'm making is that all of the way, you have two views of the world. One is that the natural state of affairs is calm and peace and miscommunication and greedy people make it bad. Or it's a Hobbesian view. It's sort of saying like, if it rains right now, when I wake up tomorrow, there'll be rust that'll came out of nowhere, or there'll be mushrooms on the lawn. Where did that stuff come from? Well, that's the natural stuff that happens when you have rain. Well, that's the natural stuff you happen when the hegemon, whether it's the British Empire of the 19th century, the American Imperium today, does not patrol the sea lanes between Turkey and Greece, or does not say, calm down about Cyprus, or don't kill too many people in Africa, or Japan, you don't have to go nuclear because we're going to protect you, or China, look, we're not going to trash you for the things you do because you buy $1 trillion worth of paper. But when you send Biden to Munich, and you send Kerry to Syria, and you send Hillary over to North Korea, and they have two messages. Bush did it, and now we're here to listen, and we're going to be really nice to you. Then everybody's... If I was the North Koreans and I saw Miss Clinton come over here, Mrs. Clinton say, Bush did it, and we're going to be listening, I'd say, you know what, you're right, he did do it. And all those accords I signed, I'm not going to follow them anymore. Because you agree with me that it was your own country's fault and not my own. And that's what's worrisome, seems to me.